For today's review, we are looking at Scarecrow from Infinite Frontier. I've never read Infinite Frontier, so I have no clue what happens in the story, but nevertheless, I find the design of Scarecrow from this source material very interesting. It's not how I would picture the character to look like, but that's exactly what makes me love Mcfarlane DC Multiverse, is when they take designs that you never think would ever get a figure and turn it into a figure. And this is another example of that. So, all right, before we talk about the aesthetics of the figure, let's look at the data profile card. As usual, I'm pretty sure most of you know who Scarecrow is, but since I've never read the back of the card before for Scarecrow, let's, I guess, find out who Scarecrow is. Again, as a young child, Jonathan Crane was subjected to sick and twisted experiments on fear conducted by his own father. Emotionally scarred and mentally unstable from the ordeal, Crane spent his childhood living in fear until he made an important realization. If he could control fear, it would never again control him. Over time, this interest in fear became an obsession. Graduating from college with a doctorate in psychology and specialty in phobias, Jonathan began experimenting on others, subjecting them to a hallucinogenic fear toxin he developed that brought out their worst nightmares. Yeah. Oh, and yeah, this is how I picture Scarecrow most of the time. So it would have been cool if we got this version of the figure as well from this source material. Maybe we will in the future. Who knows? All right. Let's take a look at the Scarecrow figure. So I could be wrong, but when I look at this figure, this looks like it was released because this is not a new figure. This is quite old. I think this came out 2 years ago. But when you look at the amount of like soft PVC overlay that they put on this figure, this looks like it was released during the period when Mcfarlane was testing a lot of like soft good materials, not like cloth, soft PVC, I mean. So none of this is actually made out of cloth. It's all plastic, but it's like the soft kind. So, you know, and if you zoom in on it, there's like a lot of like texturing on the, this cloth simulation, as I call it, because it's not actual cloth, but it's really cool. I like the way that it came out. Now, it does hinder articulation, unfortunately, which is probably the bad thing about this. If it was like actual cloth material, of course the articulation would be better, but nevertheless, I like when you see a company experiment with certain material that they didn't use before, and this figure is like a good example of that. Overlay of what looks like it could be cloth, right? Just imagine if all this was real cloth. It would have been a pretty cool figure. But yeah, nevertheless, I mean, still, I like the way it came out. But when I talk about the paint, so this is what I mean. There are certain details that could be flushed out if it wasn't all just this one flat green color. They could have done something with it, and the best example is the back. So if you look at the back of this figure, I don't know what these are. Like, are these supposed to be sticks, part of trees, woods? Like, I don't know what these are supposed to be. And I've never seen the back part of what this looks like in the comic. I don't know if it's supposed to be brown or a different color, but the fact that it's all green, it kind of ruins it because it doesn't like break up the colors. So you would assume that it's just all green, but it might be like a different shade of colors in the actual comic. So it's not supposed to be one flat color. Like on the front, if you want to keep it all green, that's fine. But like on the back, maybe this should be brown so it pops. I mean, it looks like wood. That's what it looks like to me. So I don't know. This is just my assumption. But yeah, this is a good example of like where if you're a customizer, you want to go back and change the paint on this if you have the figure. Because leaving it just this flat green, it looks really bad. So there's that. And then even for the front right here, or even certain parts of the back of the cloth area too, you can add certain, elements of like maybe like a black wash to make it look like it's dirty, or add some other colors to make it look like, it's not all green, whatever, you want on the figure to make it stand out. Like, I think the red is okay, but again, maybe some of this could be a different color. So aesthetic wise, there's a lot of customization you can do. By itself, if you leave it this way, I mean, it still looks okay, but if you want them to pop on your shelf and you know how to customize, this would definitely be a project that you can work on. Now, will I ever customize this figure? Maybe one day when I know how to and buy the right paint. I will definitely probably paint this part brown. But I will probably look into like what the actual colors are supposed to be, so I can base it off of that. If these are what it looks like in the comic too, then I don't know. Then at that point, it's just creative freedom to do whatever you want by changing the colors. So there's that. As for his face, he's wearing a very interesting gas mask. There is some texturing on the mask, which I do like. I like the way that the hair is sculpted, but again, it gets in the way, so there's not much articulation. And as you can see right here, like with this piece, right, the overlay, this arm can spread out, but you're not going to articulate the arm too much because, all this blocks it. And another thing that I like is the fact that this design with the syringes on the hands right here, as you can see, it's very reminiscent of the Arkham Knight version of Scarecrow. I like that. But what's funny about this design is that you can see the tubes, right? They're like connected. They all link up to like the top part of his hat. So a part of me was like, wait a minute, why is it connected to the top part of his hat? It looks like, is that where like the gas is coming from, so he can like use the syringes? Like, that makes no sense. And then on this side, it's not linked to anything. Like, I don't know what's going on here. So there's certain things that I feel like could have been maybe more detailed, but again, this is a $20 figure. Oh, and that's another thing. This particular figure, and it's not just this one, there's been a few other releases in the past with Mcfarlane DC Multiverse figures that have not included accessories. So there is no accessories for this figure. All he has was just the data profile card and of course the basic DC stand, which those are not accessories. So it would have been cool if he did have accessories, but I can see why, they didn't, because these are all connected inside, so they're all glued in. I don't know. I feel like there could have been something that they could have given him, maybe. So there's that. But yeah, that's aesthetics for most of the clothing area. As for his hat right here, which looks like a straw hat, I like the way that it's painted. It's very nice. There's like this green on it, so not too bad. And that is basically the aesthetics for this figure. There is really nothing else going on. Oh, wait, actually, one more. And his legs are also just like one, black color of paint. Again, you could probably go in and add some colors to this, so maybe it looks like he's wearing different stuff down here with different colors. There are just a lot of, details that are just missing with paint. And I think that's one of the biggest problem with this figure is the lack of paint. But if you are a customizer, again, this is a fun project for you if you want to customize this figure, if you have one. Okay, in terms of articulation, as I said, this figure is going to have some hindrance from certain parts of it. So let's start with the arm. So this arm could definitely go out because this is the only arm that's free. It can go all the way back if you wanted to. But do keep in mind that this tube right here is glued into that. So do be careful. It could probably get messed up, right? So do not articulate this arm too much, as I'm trying to say. He can double joint. He does have upper swivel on this side of the arm. And for this arm, it's the same thing. It could double joint. However, if you're trying to move this arm, upward, you can. But again, that gets in the way. So That's the unfortunate part about this side. As for his legs, they do kick out pretty good, but they will spread out because of the piece down here. As you can see, this is blocking any leg movement, right? He does have double jointed legs, so that's good, but I don't know what kind of action poses you're going to get him into. He does have feet articulation down here. They do swivel, and there is toe articulation, so there is that. And can he do the splits? Yeah, he can, kinda. He can spread his legs out. But again, there is no point of really getting this figure into any action poses because these pieces are going to get in the way, even on the backside, right? So he's not going to kick back too much. And for his head, there is articulation, but as you can see, look, he can't really look up, he can't look down, he can't really move because his entire hairpiece is basically blocking it. He does have, let me try to show this. So one thing about these figures that have like big overlays is that they do have like inner rotation. So there is an inner waist swivel in here. And it does work, but you can't really tell the difference because everything is covered up. So there's no point of that articulation at all. So articulation for this figure is not going to be good. So do keep that in mind. But overall, when it comes to aesthetics, it's still a really cool looking Scarecrow. Now, let me see if I can get him to stand. Okay, let's just do that. All right, and the last thing I want to do now is compare him to another Scarecrow. Now, I do not have the Arkham Knight Scarecrow. I do not have the Nolan version of Scarecrow. This is the only Scarecrow I have that has legs. Because the last Scarecrow that I looked at, that I did a video for a long time ago, this was my second review that I did 4 months back now, was looking at the Scarecrow and the Bane from Last Night on Earth. So, very interesting, right? The designs are not entirely how you would picture Scarecrow to look like. You got similar things, right? You got the syringe fingers that this one has as well. His fingers are connected to the syringes. So, yeah, very interesting. And again, this is a very weird Scarecrow because it's supposed to go on the back of Bane. And let me just bring that in. Right? We haven't looked at this guy in a while. But yes, it's a very weird looking Scarecrow. It's not your traditional kind. Same thing with this one. It's not like a classic Scarecrow. But again, I like these designs. They stand out to me. I do hope that in the future he does make a classic Scarecrow and the Injustice 2 version of Scarecrow, because that would be really cool to see. But as for this one, I think it's still pretty cool. Now, if you can get this for less than $20, if you like this design like me, it just stands out to you, try to get it for less. It's not worth paying full price because it has no accessories, and I'm pretty sure you can get it for cheap now because it is an older figure. I found this at Ross. That's how I got it, and that was back in like 2023. I think it was around winter time, so yeah. But with that said, I hope you found today's review on this Infinite Frontier version of Scarecrow informative. If you like the way I did this review, do give the video a like. If you want to subscribe to my channel to see more figure review content and whatever else I do on my channel, then you can subscribe. You do not have to, because in the end of the day, I make these videos for fun. And with that said, take care, and I will see you in the next video.